Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé latest news updates.
Alliya's journey on 90 Day Fiancé has never been just another love story. From the very first moment she appeared on screen, viewers sensed that her path would be filled with emotional depth, personal struggle, and life-altering decisions. What began as a relationship tested by distance and cultural differences soon evolved into a powerful narrative about immigration, identity, and the human desire to belong. Now, in one of the most defining moments of her life, Alliya has officially received her green card, marking the end of years of uncertainty and the beginning of a brand new chapter. Yet, just as the audience celebrates this long-awaited victory, Alliya takes another bold step forward by starting the legal process to change her first name, signaling a transformation that goes far beyond paperwork. For years, Alliya lived in a state of constant emotional suspension. Her future depended on approvals, interviews, and decisions made by people who knew her only through forms and documents. Every step of the immigration process carried the weight of potential loss. Loss of stability, loss of love, loss of the life she was trying to build. The pressure was relentless, and the fear of denial lingered quietly in the background of every happy moment. She shared with her partner when the confirmation finally arrived that her green card had been approved. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. This was not just an immigration success, it was freedom. Freedom from the ticking clock of temporary visas. Freedom from the fear of sudden separation. Freedom to plan a future without the constant question of what if. In that moment, Alliya was no longer defined by her immigration status. She was defined by her resilience. The cameras captured her reaction with raw honesty. There were no exaggerated celebrations, no dramatic declarations. Instead, there was silence, followed by tears that spoke louder than words. Years of anxiety dissolved into a quiet sense of relief. For the first time since arriving in the United States, Alliya could breathe fully. She no longer had to justify her presence. She belonged. But as viewers soon learned, Alliya's journey was not finished. Receiving her green card gave her more than legal security, it gave her clarity. With stability finally within reach, she began to reflect deeply on who she had become through the immigration process. She realized that while her circumstances had changed, so had her sense of self. The woman she was when she first arrived was not the same woman standing here now. This realization led her to a deeply personal decision to legally change her first name. For Alliya, a name was never just a label. It carried memories, expectations, and emotional weight. Her birth name was tied to a past version of herself, one shaped by limitations, fear, and the need to survive. As she navigated life in a new country, she discovered parts of herself that had long been hidden, strength she didn't know she had, confidence forged through adversity, a voice sharpened by experience. Meeting with her immigration lawyer to discuss the name change marked a turning point. Unlike previous legal appointments filled with stress and uncertainty, this meeting felt different. There was no fear of rejection, no anxiety about consequences. This decision was hers alone. It was not about pleasing anyone else or fitting into expectations. It was about alignment, bringing her legal identity in line with the person she had become. Her lawyer explained the process carefully, outlining the steps required to make the change official. For many immigrants, a name change after receiving permanent residency is a symbolic act. It represents ownership of identity in a way that was not possible before. Hearing this validated Alliya's feelings. She was not acting impulsively. She was participating in a tradition shared by countless individuals who chose self-definition after securing their place in a new world. As she signed preliminary documents, Alliya spoke openly about how transformative this moment felt. For so long, her life had been dictated by external forces, immigration laws, timelines, approvals. Now, she was making a decision rooted entirely in the contrast was powerful. Her partner stood by her side throughout the process, offering unwavering support. This moment highlighted the growth of their relationship. Where there was once tension and misunderstanding, there was now trust and empathy. He understood that this decision was not about leaving the past behind, but about honoring the journey that brought her here. Fans of 90 Day Fiancé reacted passionately to the news. Many praised Alliya's courage, calling her story inspiring and deeply relatable. Others questioned the meaning behind the name change, sparking conversations about identity, culture, and self-expression. Alliya addressed these reactions with grace, explaining that growth does not erase history, it builds upon it. Throughout the season, her story has stood out because it reflects the emotional reality of immigration, not the dramatized version, but the quiet moments of doubt, the loneliness, the strength required to keep going when the outcome is uncertain. Alliya's green card approval was the climax of a long struggle, but her decision to change her name revealed something even deeper. A woman finally choosing herself as she looks toward the future. Alliya no longer measures time by deadlines or approvals. She measures it by possibilities. Career goals that once felt distant now feel achievable. Dreams that once seemed risky now feel within reach. And most importantly, she feels whole. This chapter of Alliya's life reminds viewers that immigration is not just a legal process, it is a deeply human experience. It challenges identity, tests resilience, and ultimately shapes who we become. Alliya's journey is a testament to the power of perseverance and self-acceptance. Receiving her green card closed one chapter of her life, but starting the legal name change opened another one defined not by fear, but by choice. And as her story continues to unfold on 90 Day Fiancé, one thing is clear. Alliya is no longer just surviving. She is living, fully and unapologetically, under a name and a future she chose for herself. As Alliya moved forward with the legal name change process, something shifted not only within her, but in how the world around her responded to her presence. The sense of invisibility she once carried slowly began to fade. For years, she had felt as though she was living between identities, never fully belonging to where she came from anymore, yet not fully accepted where she was. That in-between space was exhausting. Receiving her green card anchored her in reality, but choosing a new name gave her emotional grounding. It allowed her to claim ownership over her narrative in a way she never had before. The days following her meeting with the lawyer were filled with reflection. Alliya began revisiting memories she had buried during the most stressful years of her immigration journey. She remembered the first time she packed her life into a suitcase, unsure if she would ever feel at home again. She remembered the fear of saying goodbye to family members without knowing when or if she would see them again. Those memories did not disappear with legal approval, but they softened. They no longer felt like open wounds. They felt like proof of survival on 90 Day Fiancé. Viewers saw a woman who had once struggled to articulate her emotions, now speaking with clarity and confidence. Alliya openly discussed how the immigration process had forced her to confront her sense of worth. There were moments when she questioned whether she was asking for too much love, too much security, too much space to exist freely. Over time, she learned that wanting stability is not selfish. Wanting recognition is not weakness. Wanting to be seen as a whole person is a fundamental human need. The name change became a symbol of that realization. It was not about reinvention for the sake of appearance. It was about alignment. The name she chose reflected the strength she discovered, the independence she earned, and the voice she reclaimed. Each syllable carried intention. Each letter represented distance traveled both physically and emotionally. Her partner noticed these changes immediately. Conversations that once revolved around stress and uncertainty now focused on growth and possibility. They talked about building a life not defined by fear, but by intention. The tension that once threatened to pull them apart had transformed into understanding. Supporting Alliya through her name change deepened their bond, showing that love is not about possession or control, but about respect. Yet the public reaction continued to evolve. Online discussions grew more intense, with some viewers projecting their own beliefs onto Alliya's choices. Immigration stories often invite judgment, and Alliya was no stranger to criticism. But this time, she responded differently. Instead of shrinking, she stood firm. She acknowledged that people are entitled to opinions, but reminded them that identity is not a debate. It is personal. It is lived. One particularly powerful moment came when Alliya addressed the idea that changing her name meant abandoning her roots. She explained that her culture, history, and experiences remain a permanent part of who she is. A name change does not erase the past, it reframes it. It allows growth without denial. It honors where she came from while embracing where she is going. As the legal process continued, Alliya began to imagine her future without limitation. Simple things now carried new meaning: applying for jobs without fear, traveling without anxiety, making plans without contingency. The weight she carried for so long began to lift. She no longer felt like she had to justify her existence. She was present. She was grounded. She was free. Producers of 90 Day Fiancé highlighted how rare it is to witness such internal transformation on reality television. While dramatic confrontations often dominate the screen, Alliya's story unfolded in quieter moments of realization, courage, and self-definition. These moments resonated deeply with viewers who saw themselves reflected in her journey, whether as immigrants, partners, or individuals searching for belonging. The green card approval marked the end of one struggle, but the name change symbolized the beginning of a new relationship with herself. For the first time, Alliya was not reacting to circumstances. She was choosing her identity, choosing her future, choosing peace over fear as she prepared for the next steps, including updating legal documents and informing institutions of her new name. Alliya spoke about how empowering it felt to take control of her narrative. Every form she filled out felt different now. It was no longer a test. It was confirmation. Looking ahead, Alliya acknowledged that challenges would still come. Integration is a lifelong process. Identity continues to evolve, but she no longer feared those changes. She welcomed them, because now she had the stability and self-trust to face whatever came next. This chapter of Alliya's story reminds viewers that transformation does not happen overnight. It is built through patience, courage, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Her journey is not about perfection, it is about progress. As 90 Day Fiancé continues to follow her path, one message becomes unmistakably clear. Receiving a green card may grant legal permission to stay, but choosing one's name is an act of personal liberation. Alliya's story is not just about immigration, it is about becoming . And as she steps forward under a name that reflects her truth, Alliya proves that sometimes the most powerful change is not where you live, but who you decide to be. As Alliya's story continued to unfold, the impact of her journey began to extend far beyond her personal life. What started as an intimate immigration struggle gradually turned into a broader conversation about identity, belonging, and self-determination. Viewers who had followed her from the beginning now saw not just a reality TV participant, but a woman who had reclaimed control over her narrative in a deeply meaningful way. With her green card secured and the name change process underway, Alliya began to experience a shift in how she interacted with the world. There was a newfound confidence in the way she spoke, the way she carried herself, and the way she envisioned her future. For years, uncertainty had dictated her choices. Now, stability allowed her to act with intention rather than fear. One of the most powerful moments came when Alliya discussed what citizenship might mean for her someday. While she understood that the journey was not yet complete, she no longer viewed it with anxiety. Instead, she saw it as a continuation of growth. Citizenship was no longer a desperate goal, it was a possibility she could approach on her own terms. This change in perspective alone reflected how far she had come. The public response to Alliya's transformation grew stronger with each episode. Messages poured in from viewers around the world, many of whom shared similar experiences of immigration, displacement, or identity struggle. People thanked her for showing the emotional side of a process that is often reduced to numbers and policies. Others expressed how seeing her choose her own name inspired them to reflect on their own sense of self. Alliya acknowledged this support with humility. She made it clear that she never intended to be a symbol, yet she understood the responsibility that came with visibility. Her story reminded people that immigrants are not defined solely by paperwork or status, but by resilience, dreams, and humanity. In choosing to share her truth openly, she helped normalize conversations that are often hidden behind shame or silence. As filming progressed, the contrast between Alliya's early days and her present self became impossible to ignore. The fear that once lingered behind her words was gone. In its place stood clarity. She no longer questioned whether she deserved stability, love, or respect. She knew she did. Her relationship, too, reflected this growth. Where there was once imbalance created by legal dependency, there was now equality. Decisions were made together, not out of necessity, but out of partnership. The support her partner showed during her name change process became one of the clearest signs of mutual respect. He did not see her decision as a threat or a loss, but as an evolution, and he chose to grow alongside her. Alliya also spoke about how reclaiming her identity changed the way she viewed her past. Instead of seeing it as something to escape, she began to see it as something that shaped her strength. The struggles, the fear, the waiting, all of it mattered. It led her here. It prepared her to value stability in a way she never could before. The legal confirmation of her name change, when it finally arrived, was quiet, yet profound. There was no dramatic announcement, just a moment of reflection, a realization that her name now officially matched the person she felt herself to be. This alignment brought a sense of peace that no visa or document ever could. As the season approached its end, Alliya reflected on what she hoped viewers would take away from her journey. She said she hoped people would understand that change is not betrayal, that growth does not erase origins, and that choosing oneself is not selfish. It is necessary. Her story challenges the idea that happy endings are singular moments. For Alliya, happiness came in layers. First, the courage to leave what was familiar, then the strength to endure uncertainty, then the relief of legal security, and finally, the freedom to define herself on her own terms. The final episodes of her arc on 90 Day Fiancé did not end with dramatic conflict or shocking twists. Instead, they ended with something far more powerful: not perfection, but peace. Not certainty, but confidence. Alliya's journey reminds us that immigration is not just about crossing borders. It is about crossing internal boundaries. It is about confronting who you were, who you are, and who you want to become. Her green card gave her the right to stay, but her name change gave her the right to be. As the cameras fade and the story pauses, one truth remains undeniable. Alliya did not just receive legal status. She claimed ownership of her life, and in doing so, she showed that the most meaningful transformation is not written on paper, but lived every day with intention, dignity, and self-respect.